Hey y'all, welcome back to Krista's Kitchen. Today we're going to be making some chicken and dumplings. So the weather's starting to turn here and you never know how long it's going to last in Louisiana. So we take advantage of soups and stews while we can. And my daughter's going to be super excited for this one. So she loves chicken and dumplings. This is a super easy, quick meal. It sounds like it could be difficult, but it's really not. It's fast to throw together, especially on a weeknight. So we're going to go ahead and get it started. Just going to turn our stove on. The first thing we're going to do, now remember, always leave the recipe down below so y'all can try it at home. But I'm going to kind of walk you through everything and hopefully y'all will enjoy this meal as well. So I put in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil down in our pan. We're going to get it heating up. Now y'all know I love my Misfits boxes, so a lot of what we're tossing in here came from my Misfits vegetable box. And again, since it's a weeknight, I took the easy way out and shredded up a rotisserie chicken. You can also boil a couple chicken breasts. You're going to do about 3 or 4 depending on their size. About 4 cups is about what we need for this recipe. So this is 1 whole rotisserie chicken. We've got a cup of onions that are chopped up, a cup of celery that I've chopped up, and about 1.5 cups of carrots that we've chopped up. Now the thing with the carrots that you want to be sure of is don't put a ton in. We want to add some just to add some extra vegetables, but we don't want to end up making the chicken and dumplings too sweet. I also like to use chicken base. Now this comes from Sam's. And I use about 1/2 cup of chicken base with about 4 to 5 cups of water to turn it into my own broth. That way I can strengthen the intensity of how chicken flavored I want it to be. You could use 4 to 6 cups of chicken broth from the can or a box if you prefer. I like this. It's easy to store until you open it. It's shelf stable. Once we open it, we're going to put it in the fridge after this. But that's what it looks like. This is also really easy to throw together if you just want some chicken broth if you're feeling sick. Just a couple spoonfuls, some hot water, and you have some broth. Quick and easy. So our pan's starting to heat up. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. Seasonings that we use for it, garlic powder. Y'all know I love my thyme. We're going to use some ground thyme, garlic powder, salt, and pepper. And let the chicken do the seasoning for us. It's not a whole lot more seasoning than that. Like I said, very simple. So let's get our onions, our celery, and we're just going to cook this down until it's nice and softened. Now see, I use the celery leaves also. They have a ton of flavor in them. We'll let that simmer, and we'll catch up with y'all in just a minute. Alright y'all, so we're going to season this up, add in our chicken base and our water, and get the chicken in and start simmering. So we're going to do about a teaspoon of thyme. This is ground thyme, so it's quite potent. And I do about a tablespoon of garlic powder. You could leave the garlic powder out entirely if you like. Garlic is like another food group for me, so I put it in just about everything. A little bit of salt, maybe about a teaspoon. Now remember, the chicken base and your chicken broth are going to have salt in them, even if you use the low sodium. So if you don't quite know how much you want to use, just wait until the end and season it a little more to taste. Usually once you get to the end of a recipe, you need to be tasting it along the way anyway. You'll have to use some extra salt. You just don't want to over season. It's a whole lot harder to take that salt flavor out of foods than it is to add it in. So just putting in our chicken base. And again, I use about a half a cup with about 4 to 5 cups of water, because I know I can add a little bit more chicken base throughout the recipe if it feels a little thin to me or a little flat. It's like a nice little mustard kind of color right now. I'm going to add some of our water. Mix this around, and we'll add some more water. Do about a cup more. Let's add in our chicken. So this is white meat and dark meat. Just use the whole chicken. We'll let this come up to a simmer, and we'll work on our dumplings while this is going. Now, you can make dumplings from scratch, but again, we're working on a weeknight dinner, so I'm going to show y'all how we make the dumplings quick and easy, and it's much easier, but they taste just as delicious. All right, I'll meet you over there. Okay, so we're going to move on to our dumplings, and my secret recipe, or my secret trick, is not really a secret, but canned biscuits help speed up the process. So we're going to cut these into quarters, and usually for this size of chicken and dumplings you only need 2 or 3 cans, but we love the dumplings, so I use 4 cans or one of those small packs. So just sprinkle my area with some flour so it doesn't stick. And it also coats the outside of the biscuits so that whenever I pour them into the chicken and dumplings, it thickens it up a little bit. So you can also use a pizza cutter to cut them, or really just about anything. You can even tear them if you want to. Just tear them up into 4 pieces and toss them in. Your smaller pieces are going to cook better. They're going to simmer better in your broth. Now, if you're using a bone broth or something with a little bit more color, like a vegetable broth, then your broth is going to get darker and your biscuits are going to absorb that color. So just know that if you're using a light chicken broth, your biscuits are going to stay that lighter color, and so is your broth. But if you're using a darker bone broth or something, the biscuits are going to turn darker as well. We're just going to tear these all up while our broth simmers and those flavors kind of meld together, and then we'll toss them all in. Okay, so we have our biscuits pretty much done. Gonna toss them around a few times and make sure they're all good and coated. And we're gonna make sure our broth is simmering together. Taste test it and get moving on with this. Like I said, it's very quick and easy. Now all this extra flour that's down in the bottom of this, we don't have to use. Again, I just like to put it on my biscuit pieces. It keeps them from sticking back together so much, and it thickens up the broth. So I don't have to make a slurry with any flour, and I don't have to use any cornstarch for it. This does the work for me. Wash my hands and I'll see y'all over there. So we're back over the stove. We're going to taste test our broth and see how it tastes, see if we need to add anything to it, and we'll kind of go from there. So you want something to taste kind of creamy, not overly salty, but also not like just flavored water. So it is a little bit salty, but this will bring it down. I do taste that we need some more of that creaminess. So you see I have my milk out. We're going to add a little bit more pepper also. But as far as the chicken base and the thyme, I think we're good. Now with my milk, I start small. I don't add a ton, maybe a third of a cup, a quarter of a cup right at first, and kind of go from there. That's just our preference. We again want to cut through some of that salt and make it more of a creamy taste, but we don't want it to end up being like a potato soup with dumplings in it. After we get these flavors right where we want them, we're going to get this all the way up to a rolling boil. And always taste your food. You always want to make sure it's what you like. That's much better. Just those little changes make a huge difference. Alright, let's get this cranked up. It's already at a simmer, so it's not going to take very long for it to come to a boil. We're going to, in small portions, drop these dumplings down in there. And then once all of the dumplings are in, we're going to keep the space, there's a little fuss, we're going to keep the space moving around it and put the lid on and let them simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes. The kids usually like helping put in the dumplings as well, because they'll watch for the little bubbles to pop up, and that's where they want to put them. I just kind of go around the pot, making sure I'm keeping good spacing. Now the dumplings will swell up right at first. They are bread and they're absorbing a lot of that fluid, but after they've simmered, they'll kind of shrink back down a little bit. They won't go back down to this same size. Excuse me. Alright, so we're going to stir it and keep dropping our dumplings in. So at this point you're probably wondering, is there anything in here besides dumplings, because you see them swelling up. But again, they're going to go down, and this is a wonderful recipe to really play with anyway, because if you're not quite sure if you needed a little more chicken broth, or if you needed a little more water, a little more chicken, you can always add those things as you go. If you feel like you need some more vegetables in it, I would cook them off in a saucepan and really soften them up before I put them in. But this recipe lends itself to making mistakes, to needing to add things as you go, or say we did make it a little too salty and we need to tone down some of that salt. We could always put some potatoes in to draw out some of that salt, or make the batch a little bit bigger. Add a little bit more chicken, a little more water, and dumplings, and just make it a larger batch. You don't have to throw the whole pot out because it's a little too salty. You can always adjust this recipe and add to it and make it what you need. And the only thing that happens from cooking it a little bit longer is you develop those flavors a little bit more. So we're going to turn this down, put our lid on it, let those flavors move around, and I'm going to clean up and we'll see the finished product in just a little bit. So our chicken and dumplings have been simmering for about 15 minutes. We're going to check them and see how they're doing. So you can see how it's thickened up with just that little bit of flour. We actually could probably thin this out a little bit more with a little more chicken broth, but I think it will be okay for us. Like I said, you can't really mess up this recipe, so that's something nice. Just turned off the stove. We're going to scoop us up a little bit and see how it tastes. I'm going to try a carrot too. You can always make it fancy. Add a little bit of parsley to the top of it if you like. But it's something hearty that will definitely fill you up, and if you have to take a lunch or send something with your kids, it'll be nice and easy as this weather gets cooler, to keep you nice and warm. Now we know Louisiana weather doesn't stay cold for very long, but we still like to eat our soups. Very good. The celery is a little bit strong this time, but I don't mind it. It gives it good deep flavor, and you're going to think we barely had to put any seasoning in. The thyme, the garlic powders, salt and pepper. I've even made it when I just did salt and pepper with the veggies, and it's been perfectly fine. Alright, let's try the carrots. Well, I think it's tender. I cut through it, but the carrots even add just that level of sweetness that helps. Hopefully you enjoyed the recipe, and let me know if you try it. Let me know if your family does anything different with their chicken and dumplings. I'm not a flat chicken and dumpling kind of gal, but these biscuit dumplings work out perfectly for us. They're just the right size, texture, and I feel like they're not too gummy on the inside for us. But let us know if you like it. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.